It's your wedding day. You're glowing, surrounded by love, finally feeling like you matter. Then your mother pulls you aside with that familiar smile and whispers, "We're keeping your gift money. Your sister needs it more. What would you do?" Well, my husband had already prepared for this moment. And what happened next? It destroyed my family forever. If you've ever felt the sweet, cold satisfaction of perfect justice, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit like if you're ready for a story where boundaries aren't just drawn, they're carved in stone. And stick around, because this tale of family betrayal and ultimate liberation will leave you speechless. Let's dive in. My name is Emily, and I need you to understand something about my childhood. There was never a single dramatic moment where my parents sat me down and explained that I didn't matter. It was quieter than that, more insidious. 1,000 tiny cuts that taught me one fundamental truth. I would always come second to my younger sister Chelsea. When Chelsea broke my toys, my mother Linda would sigh and say, "She's younger, Emily. Just let it go." When Chelsea threw tantrums over things I was using, Linda wouldn't correct her. Instead, she'd turn to me with that practiced gentleness and say, "You know how she gets. Just let her have it." And I did. Every single time. Because I was older. Because I knew better. Because they made absolutely certain I understood that Chelsea's emotions mattered more than fairness ever would. This wasn't dramatic abuse. It was something far more dangerous, the slow, careful construction of a world where my needs were always optional, where I learned to disappear into the background, to move around Chelsea's moods like she was a force of nature I had no choice. But to accommodate by 16, this unspoken rule had become law. If I wanted anything beyond the bare minimum of phone, decent clothes, any shot at independence, I had to earn it myself. So I worked. Weekend jobs, after-school shifts, stocking shelves, wiping tables, running registers. I learned early never to ask for help, because help was reserved for Chelsea. When Chelsea turned 16, she didn't apply for jobs. She didn't even pretend to care about earning money. On her birthday, my father Mark handed her car keys, and Linda handed her a credit card. "Just focus on your studies, sweetheart," my mother said, brushing Chelsea's hair like something out of a commercial. "We'll handle the rest. We'll handle the rest." A phrase that never once appeared in my vocabulary. College was a nightmare of scholarships, loans, and 2 part-time jobs. I lived in the cheapest room I could find, ate box pasta 5 nights a week, and carried a bone-deep exhaustion that no one ever bothered to notice. Meanwhile, Chelsea got into a private university, with everything covered: tuition, housing, groceries, utilities. She lived in a sunny apartment with white curtains and a balcony, never missing a class because she was working doubles. When I asked Linda about this disparity just once, gently, her response was calm and devastating. "Chelsea isn't as strong as you, Emily. She needs more support." That line became the spine of their logic. It didn't matter how much I struggled. What mattered was that I could survive it. And I did. That was the problem. When Chelsea ran out of money, they bailed her out. When she totaled her car, they replaced it. When she maxed out her credit cards buying things she didn't need, Mark paid without even frowning. But when I was hit with a surprise medical bill, urgent, terrifying, and called home with my heart pounding, Linda sighed and said, "I wish we could help, honey, but things are tight right now." "You'll figure it out." I always figured it out. And they always let me. Eventually, I stopped asking, not just for help, but for attention, for care, for acknowledgement. I stopped expecting to be anyone worth worrying about. And somehow, that made things easier for everyone. When Jake Thompson proposed, I didn't cry. I laughed, not because I didn't care, but because I hadn't expected anyone to choose me with that kind of certainty. It was a quiet moment on a rainy afternoon, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Planning the wedding felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life, a life where I could be the center of something without guilt. But as the day approached, the familiar patterns emerged. Linda started her practice sighing. Weddings are so expensive these days. Such a shame, really, spending that much on just one day. She wasn't trying to talk me out of it, she just wanted me to feel guilty for being celebrated. Mark was quieter but no less precise. We've been making some sacrifices lately. Things aren't as easy as they used to be, but we do what we can. Chelsea's had a rough year, and Chelsea? She made no effort to hide her resentment, rolling her eyes whenever the wedding came up, scoffing at bridesmaid dresses, joking that I was acting like a princess when I cried during cake tasting. But what cut deepest was the look on her face whenever someone gave me their full attention, like my happiness was a personal threat to her oxygen supply. Jake noticed first. One night, while I was obsessed over seating charts, he stood watching me with arms folded. His voice was calm, but there was a new edge to it. "They're going to pull something," he said. I looked up. "Who?" "Your parents." I shook my head, tried to laugh. "Jake, come on. They can be selfish, sure, but it's our wedding." "They wouldn't ruin our wedding." He didn't answer right away, just watched me steadily. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a sealed white envelope, and set it on the table, just in case. He said, I didn't ask what was inside, but for the first time, I wondered if Jake was right. The morning of the wedding felt impossibly quiet. The sky was clear, the florist arrived early, my dress fit like it was always meant for me. For the first time in years, I let myself believe I was allowed to have something beautiful. Linda greeted me with warm smiles and tea, smoothing my hair like she used to when I was 5. "You look lovely, Emily." Truly, even Chelsea held back. No eye rolls, no sighs, barely any words at all. I took it as progress. The ceremony was everything I hadn't dared dream of. Vows spoken through held breath, air thick with roses and champagne, and something I'd been waiting my whole life for: quiet approval. My mother clapped during toasts. My father danced with me. Chelsea sat quietly and didn't complain when the music got loud. Just before walking down the aisle, I found a card tucked into my bouquet. A small ivory envelope with my name in Linda's handwriting. Inside was a simple message. "No matter what today, you are our daughter. And you are loved." Mom, it was vague, simple, but it broke something open in me. For a moment, I thought maybe she finally saw me, not as Chelsea's shadow, not as the strong one who never needed anything. Just me. So when the music played and the room spun with people I loved, I let myself fall into the illusion. I smiled until my cheeks ached, danced until my feet throbbed, held Jake's hand like a lifeline. I told myself I'd been wrong to worry. They'd changed. They had to have changed. It happened just after the first dance. The band had taken a break, the room had settled into conversation and soft clinking of glasses. I was still warm from the music, a little breathless, cheeks flushed from spinning with Jake beneath the lights. That's when Linda touched my arm. She was smiling too brightly, the kind of smile that meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like, but thought I might accept anyway. "Come with me a moment," she said, voice gentle and light. I followed her to a corner near the bar, away from the guests, where candles flickered low. She took my hands in hers and squeezed them like she had something beautiful to share. "You look radiant," she said, almost in a whisper. "It's a lovely evening." I waited. The pause wasn't casual. It was deliberate. Then she leaned in, her voice soft enough that no one else would hear. "We're keeping your gift money. Chelsea needs it more than you do." For a moment, I couldn't speak. I thought maybe I'd misunderstood, that she'd said something else entirely. But the way she kept smiling, like she'd just handed me a blessing, told me I'd heard her exactly right. "I'm sorry?" I asked finally. She sighed. This was difficult for her. "Sweetheart, you don't need it. You have Jake now. You're building a life together. Chelsea's struggling, and it's only fair that she gets a little help." My fingers had gone cold. The hum of the reception blurred into a low drone behind me. I was still holding her hands, and I hated that I hadn't pulled away yet. "That money wasn't yours to touch," I said. My voice came out low, flat. Linda blinked once. Her smile didn't drop, but something in it tightened. We're your parents. In this family, we help each other. That was when I understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't temporary blindness or a lapse in judgment. This was exactly what she believed, that I was a resource to be tapped, that Chelsea's needs would always outweigh my own. And even here, even on my wedding day, even in my moment of joy, she still expected me to hand it over, just like I always had. I didn't know Jake was standing behind me until I heard his voice. It was quiet, measured, but there was something in it that made the air go still. Good thing we planned for this, Jake said. I turned. He was calm, hands in his pockets, eyes steady on Linda. Not angry, not surprised, just ready. Her smile faltered slightly. What do you mean? Jake didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope, the one he'd given me weeks ago, the one I hadn't opened. He held it between two fingers and extended it to her like an offer. Go ahead, he said. Open it. Mark had joined us now, standing behind Linda with arms crossed, jaw tight. His eyes narrowed at Jake like he was sizing him up, but he said nothing. Linda hesitated, then took the envelope with practiced grace. She slid a nail beneath the flap and pulled out a stack of papers. I watched her scan the first page. Her hands didn't shake, not yet, but I saw the stillness in her face, the tightening around her mouth, the way her breath caught halfway through. The second paragraph, Mark leaned in to read over her shoulder. I saw his brow crease. What the hell is this? He asked. Jake's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It's a notarized legal declaration, signed 3 weeks ago. It states that all wedding gifts, monetary or otherwise, are legally the property of Emily and me. Linda blinked. Jake continued. Any attempt to withhold, redirect, or access those funds without our consent constitutes theft and will be prosecuted. The silence after that was thick enough to choke on. Linda looked at me now, not with sweetness, not with gentle condescension, but with a flicker of something I hadn't seen in her before. Uncertainty. You wouldn't take us to court, she said, barely above a whisper. We're family, Jake smiled. Small, controlled. Oh, I would, and I will. I could see it in the way he stood, not defiant, not angry, just unwavering. He had drawn a line, and he would not let them step over it. Mark's mouth opened, then closed again. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. For once, I wasn't the one explaining, defending, or softening the blow. I just stood beside my husband and let them sit with the reality they never expected, that they had pushed too far, and someone was finally pushing back. The silence didn't last long. Chelsea stepped forward, her heels clicking too sharply against the floor. Her face was flushed, lips tight, eyes wide with disbelief. She looked between the envelope in Linda's hand and the unreadable expression on Jake's face. Then she cracked. This isn't fair, she shouted, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You're married now, Emily. You don't even need that money. You have a husband, a future, everything. And I have nothing. Her voice rose higher with every word, each sentence more breathless than the last. I'm struggling and you don't even care. I didn't answer. I just watched her. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel shocked. I felt something colder, because at that moment, it hit me. She meant it. She wasn't lashing out or being manipulative. She wasn't throwing a tantrum to get her way. She truly, deeply believed that she had a right to what was mine, to the money, to the moment, to anything I had that she didn't, because that's how it had always been. Her pain, real or imagined, mattered more than my boundaries. Her struggle, self-inflicted or not, was always more urgent than my stability. I'd spent years hoping she'd grow out of it, that one day she'd wake up and realize she wasn't the center of the universe. But as I watched her now, shoulders trembling, fists clenched, tears streaking her face like a child denied dessert, I knew the truth. She was never going to change, and I was done waiting for her to. Mark stepped forward so fast it startled even Linda. His face was red, his mouth tight, eyes hard as stone. For a moment he looked like he might explode, not just with anger, but with something deeper, something wounded. I have never been so ashamed of you, he spat. Not in my life. I didn't move. I didn't flinch, didn't fold, didn't look away. I met his eyes steady, calm, the way I had never dared to before, and let his words hang in the air like smoke that no longer choked me. The shame he was trying to hand me didn't fit anymore. I didn't say it out loud, but the silence between us said enough. You don't get to be ashamed of the daughter you never protected. Jake took a step closer, his voice low but sharp like a blade that didn't need to be lifted to draw blood. If you try to take 1 cent from us, we will see you in court. There was no heat in his voice, no anger, just certainty. And that's what made it land. Linda's lips parted like she might say something, but no words came. Chelsea let out a frustrated sob behind her, but no one turned to her now. Even Mark said nothing more, because for the first time, they understood the math had changed. There would be no pleading, no compromise, no playing on guilt or history or the 1,000 quiet ways they'd trained me to fold. There was only this: a daughter who didn't need their approval, a husband who would stand beside her, and a line they would not cross again. We walked away without a word. The music behind us had picked up again, strings and soft laughter, trying to fill the space that had cracked wide open. But to me, the world felt hushed, as if the air itself knew something had shifted. Jake's hand was warm in mine, steady, certain. My spine lengthened with each step. I didn't glance back. I didn't need to, until I felt her fingers close around my wrist. The grip was too familiar, tight but trembling. Emily, my mother's voice was small, barely more than a breath. I turned. She looked unrecognizable. Her eyes were wide, her composure gone. The practiced grace she'd worn like a second skin for decades had fallen away. What was left was a woman unraveling. You don't mean this, she whispered. We're your family. I didn't answer right away. For once, I let the silence settle on her shoulders. I let her sit in it, the weight of her words, the hollowness behind them. I let her feel the truth she had never wanted to see. Then I spoke, not loud, not cruel, just steady. You were never my family, I said, tilting my head. You were Chelsea's. Her face went still like the words had struck her across the mouth. Her hand dropped from my wrist as if it had been burned. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quiet, almost invisible. But I saw it all. I saw the way her shoulders slumped, the way her fingers twitched as if trying to grab something that had already slipped through. The way her eyes flicked to Jake, not with anger now, but with disbelief. She had never imagined this moment. Not once. She'd always assumed I'd circle back, that no matter what they took, I'd come home eventually. But this time I wasn't walking away in silence. I was walking away with everything I had built on my own, and I wasn't leaving the door cracked. We kept walking, step by step, breath by breath, away from the people who had once called themselves my family. Behind us, the reception hummed faintly. Laughter, clinking glasses, music. A soundtrack for someone else's version of the day, not ours. Not anymore. And then I heard it. The shuffle of hurried footsteps. The sharp whisper of breathless voices. Emily, please. It was Linda again, her words chasing me, desperate now. I didn't turn around. Behind her, Chelsea's voice climbed into a shriek, something about how I was ruining everything, how she deserved better, how I had stolen the spotlight. Then came Mark, low and furious, cursing under his breath, no longer trying to hide his rage. It all came at once, the pleading, the outrage, the fury, a perfect storm of the old pattern, except this time, I wasn't standing in the middle of it. I didn't turn around. Not to Linda's cracking voice, not to Chelsea's tantrum, not to Mark's bitterness. Because they weren't speaking to me. They were speaking to the version of me they had created, the one who apologized, who sacrificed, who stayed, but she didn't exist anymore. That girl, the one who waited her whole life to be seen, to be chosen, she had finally chosen herself. Jake squeezed my hand once, quiet, solid, present. And that was all I needed. I walked on, past the voices, past the wreckage, past the years I had spent begging for scraps. I didn't need a final word. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need closure. Some things end not with confrontation, but with a silence so final it leaves nothing behind, and in that silence I found peace. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's liberation. It's the moment you realize you don't need the people who trained you to believe you were disposable. It's walking away not in anger, but in absolute certainty that you deserve better. That's Emily's story, a woman who finally chose herself over a family that never chose her. What's the most liberating moment you've ever experienced? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories of triumph over toxicity, and remember, you always have the power to walk away from people who don't value you. Until next time, keep choosing yourself.